Pre-dawn mist clung to the Mekong. Soldiers scanned the gray surface rifles, raised hearts pounding, aware of hidden movement. Lieutenant Miller signaled for silence. Even whispers were swallowed by the jungle. Every ripple became a potential threat. A massive splash erupted nearby. Soldiers froze, rifles trained instinctively, but nothing emerged, only an unnerving ripple of mystery. Hung pointed to bent reeds along the bank. Something enormous had passed unseen, an impossibility that challenged their training. The river churned suddenly. Waves lashed the boats, tossing oars and soaking men. Their disciplined coordination was tested. A fleeting shadow glided beneath the water, enormous and undefined. The Mekong held a force they could not measure. Adrenaline clashed with training. Every man knew hesitation could be fatal against an unseen but intelligent enemy. The creature's presence manipulated the river itself. Currents shifted unnaturally, and the soldiers felt the full weight of helplessness. Miller raised a hand for caution. Hung silently tracked patterns in the water, knowing a small observation could mean survival. The mist thickened. The river settled into a deceptive calm, but the unseen watcher was far from gone. The encounter had just begun. Pre-dawn mist hung over the Mekong. Soldiers assembled rifles, slung boots, sinking in the wet mud. The jungle held its breath. Lieutenant Miller inspected the unit, ensuring every rifle was loaded. His calm demeanor contrasted with the men's apprehension. Soldiers rechecked gear. The familiarity of routine was a fragile comfort against the unknown awaiting them downstream. Lieutenant Hung traced river bends on a map, noting dangerous currents. His finger hovered over dark patches, a silent sign of danger. Operation Shadow River demanded reconnaissance along a treacherous stretch. Survival depended on vigilance, skill, and discipline. Soldiers practiced silent hand signals. Their methodical movements reinforced cohesion and readiness for unforeseen threats. Miller moved along the ranks, checking for fidgeting. A single misstep could have disastrous consequences for the unit. Men checked their weapons, M16s and AK-47s. Every click of a magazine echoed the discipline drilled into them. Sweat slid down brows. Physical discomfort heightened awareness, sharpening reflexes and focus. Scouts reported on foliage marking potential fire lines. The smallest misjudgment could be fatal in the dense jungle. Radios buzzed intermittently, sending coded signals. Each hum was scrutinized. Miscommunication could leave them exposed. Soldiers adjusted packs and life vests, preparing for hours on unstable boats. Every man depended on his training. Brief gestures built invisible bonds of trust. Discipline was a shared understanding that failure was unacceptable. The Mekong mirrored the dawn, hiding submerged logs and threats. Soldiers peered into the murk, aware of the unseen danger. Prior encounters, missing men. Strange currents heightened the soldiers' vigilance before they even started the mission. Miller reiterated objectives: map the river, observe, and ensure survival. Every man absorbed the weight of his responsibility. Soldiers moved in pairs, covering blind spots, eyes locked, muscles tensed, ready to react instantly to any threat. Hung pointed out a narrow bend with swift currents, warning of treacherous eddies that could flip their small craft. Each step was deliberate. The jungle seemed to close in, reminding them that stealth and patience were their best allies. Each soldier had a responsibility: protect comrades, report anomalies, and follow protocol. Mistakes would be catastrophic. Shadows shifted as light penetrated the canopy. Soldiers scanned every movement, interpreting every ripple and rustle. Casual conversations were rare. Men shared only silent glances and controlled breaths, bound by palpable shared tension. Miller reviewed contingency plans, rally points, and emergency signals. Every man memorized his role for survival. Humidity clung to clothing, radios hummed, and the river flowed steadily. A deceptive calm masked mounting anxiety. Previous drills surfaced instinctively. Training merged with instinct, guiding movements with minimal conscious thought. Animal movements were monitored carefully. Each unusual sound triggered cautious scanning. Even nature was a possible threat. Positions along the riverbank were adjusted with care. Angles, lines of sight, and proximity to cover were considered in minute detail. Personal motivations, family duty, survival, and camaraderie forged in adversity kept the soldiers going. Sunlight glinted off the murky water, creating deceptive reflections. Soldiers knew appearances could be misleading, concealing danger. At a strategic junction, the unit paused to reassess the route. Hand signals conveyed urgent assessments without a word. Heartbeats synchronized with the rhythmic dip of oars. The men felt the pulse of the mission, attuned to each other's tension. Mental strain was constant. Command decisions, accountability, and relentless attention were required in this hostile terrain. Scouts whispered warnings of sudden currents and debris. The environment itself could be just as lethal as an enemy. Soldiers braced themselves, knowing discipline and cohesion were their only shields against nature and the unknown. The unit advanced into shadow channels. Unseen forces awaited. A danger that exceeded any training was about to be encountered. Dawn's pale light turned the Mekong into a murky, shifting mirror. Subtle ripples caused unease through the unit. A scout froze, pointing at an indistinct shadow under the boat. Its size defied all known river creatures. Lieutenant Miller signaled for stillness. Every man crouched, rifles raised, unprepared for the unknown forces beneath the surface. Dead fish floated near the bank, torn with surgical precision. The river's wildlife seemed manipulated by an invisible hand. Hung crouched over the muddy banks, tracing patterns. His experience told him these anomalies were neither natural nor random. An oar struck something with a hollow thud. The water erupted in waves larger than any debris could produce. A distant splash echoed violently. Soldiers raised their weapons, sensing a presence far heavier than any known animal. One soldier swore he saw a dark mass dart beneath the boat. Even trained eyes questioned reality under such stress. Miller ordered a methodical scan. Fear crept into muscles and mind, but they maintained discipline. The water twisted unnaturally. Currents converged as if drawn by unseen hands. Soldiers froze adrenaline, sharpening their reflexes. Scouts reported bent vegetation and uprooted trees. The evidence suggested an immense force moving through the riverbank. The unit paused. Their mounting unease was palpable. A once familiar jungle now seemed alien and full of threats. Static crackled on the radios, interrupting communication. Even their equipment seemed to respond to something unseen. Fingers brushed triggers as their minds battled instinctive fear. The soldiers' disciplined suppression of panic was a struggle. Hung caught sight of a vast shifting shadow under the boat, its scale defying all known river life. A small rodent froze, then vanished. The men exchanged tense glances. Nature itself seemed to be signaling a warning. Ripples formed deliberate patterns. Something intelligent and aware was influencing the river itself. Miller signaled a silent regroup. Every movement was calculated to maintain cohesion under this uncertain threat. A sudden splash near reeds. Rifles aimed, but nothing emerged. The river was testing their nerves. The Mekong seemed alive, observing their every action, transforming mundane observation into vigilant paranoia. Hung whispered old legends of Mekong guardians. Tales once dismissed as myth now gained a haunting plausibility. Soldiers meticulously recorded anomalies. Every detail could prove critical if they survived to report it. A faint metallic scent drifted over the river, barely perceptible, yet unnerving, heightening their senses. Currents tugged the boats unnaturally. Soldiers braced against invisible forces, maintaining balance through focus and training. Shadows beneath the surface moved contrary to the natural flow, too fast and deliberate to be a known creature. A dropped flashlight clanged against the hull, its sound immediately swallowed by an eerie silence. Soldiers paused, straining to hear jungle sounds, which were now muted as if nature itself feared a disturbance. A fleeting amorphous form slid beneath the boat, stretching impossibly before vanishing. Their hearts raced with the unknown presence. Fear challenged training. Disciplined soldiers confronted forces they could not identify or predict, testing their nerve and cohesion. Miller halted near a bend, directing scouts to mark unusual currents. Every anomaly became real-time intelligence. A lone bird screamed overhead, startled. Even wildlife seemed aware of the unnatural presence lurking below. Eyes never left the water. Every splash or leaf triggered their attention, vigilance overriding fatigue and discomfort. An erratic current tugged at the boats. Subtle unnatural movements reminded them the river was not a passive environment. The mental toll was immense. Men questioned their senses, yet training and discipline prevented panic from taking over. The Mekong seemed sentient, alive, with subtle signs of intelligence foreshadowing the confrontation that awaited them just ahead. A massive splash erupted. Soldiers gripped their rifles, hearts hammering, every instinct screaming danger. Lieutenant Miller ordered formation weapons ready. Discipline collided with adrenaline as the unknown force revealed itself. Shadows shifted beneath the boats. The water seemed alive, pulsing with intent, testing the soldiers' nerve. A violent wave rocked the lead boat. Oars splashed, rifles swung as every man struggled to regain his footing. Trained soldiers accustomed to ambushes now faced something incomprehensible. The river responded to its presence. Hung shouted, pointing to the banks where trees snapped as if the river had reached outward with force. A soldier fired a warning shot. Water erupted, but nothing tangible emerged. Tension escalated. Reality felt unstable. Another splash closer rocked the second boat. Soldiers braced breathing, ragged fighting primal fear. The river churned with inexplicable currents tugging at the boats. Training was clashing with chaos. Shadows beneath the water twisted. Their intelligent movement drew murmurs of disbelief from seasoned men. Miller shouted orders over crashing water, directing men to regroup. Cohesion was now survival. One soldier slipped into the river, scrambling back, shaking eyes wide with terror. The creature breached the surface, a colossal dark shape with scales glinting, then vanished. Hung signaled for suppression fire. Rounds splashed, provoking more violent ripples, revealing immense strength. Discipline demanded order, but instinct screamed to flee. They faced the incomprehensible. Currents tossed boats, creating near collisions. Men's coordination was tested under extreme duress. Scouts shone flashlights, illuminating a fleeting glimpse of an enormous tail or appendage. The unit tried to flank the disturbance. Water movement countered every maneuver, a force consciously shaping the river. Soldiers fired bursts. Tracers illuminated the mist, but nothing tangible surfaced where the rounds impacted. The physical and psychological toll was immense. Hearts pounded muscles, tensed minds fought to remain composed. A soldier was yanked by an unseen force, saved by a comrade's quick grasp. Life was fragile in this encounter. The river seemed to roar. Waves crashed against the boats. Debris floated violently, amplifying the chaos. Miller's voice cut through the cacophony. His commands: hold position, maintain line, protect each other. A large splash erupted near the third boat. Men ducked instinctively, water cascading over them, soaking gear. The shadows beneath the boats became distinct, massive serpentine forms, overwhelming perception with their scale. Every splash, every ripple was a potential threat. The soldiers' senses were heightened, forcing constant vigilance. Hung shouted updates on currents, helping Miller adjust formation for the unpredictable force. This was a surreal encounter. They were trained for combat but faced an opponent beyond all strategy. The riverbank erupted as debris was hurled violently. Trees snapped, mud sprayed, demonstrating the creature's power. A soldier narrowly avoided floating timber. His comrade pulled him to safety. Fear was now tangible. The creature's form broke the surface again. Eyes reflected dim light, then vanished, leaving stunned silence. Currents twisted boats, causing collisions and damage. The balance between survival and chaos was fragile. Soldiers fired coordinated volleys. The river erupted, and the creature responded with intelligence. Miller used hand signals to regroup the unit. He reminded men of their training despite fear's grip. A flash of movement caught a scout's eye, a massive silhouette diving, leaving trailing waves. Hung directed boats into narrower channels, trying to contain the creature. Currents and turbulence hampered them. The terror escalated. A disciplined unit was tested to its limits, navigating water in the unknown. A soldier screamed as a surge of water nearly capsized him. Others pulled him back, holding the fragile line. Debris from the riverbank added to the confusion. Every man fought to focus amid sensory overload. The creature breached again, its tail sweeping the water. Soldiers fired, but were ineffective. Miller issued rapid orders: flank, stabilize boats, prioritize the wounded. It was command under extreme duress. A soldier slipped overboard, clawing back to the boat, soaked. He was reminded of his vulnerability. The river churned. Men shouted signals, flared fear and adrenaline, battling for control. Hung signaled retreat to a more stable stretch. They would observe while acknowledging their limits. The unit limped through turbulent water. The creature's intelligence had been revealed, setting the stage for the climax. The river erupted as the creature fully breached. Towering waves crashed over the boats. Soldiers scrambled, gripping weapons. Lieutenant Miller shouted orders, directing the unit into a tight formation. Adrenaline surged as fear and discipline collided. Hung pointed at trees snapping on the bank. Soldiers fired but only hit water. No creature emerged. A massive tail swept through the water, nearly capsizing the lead boat. Men braced, drenched, scrambling for grip. The most experienced troops could not comprehend this intelligent and powerful force. They faced something beyond training. Unpredictable currents tossed debris and men. One soldier was pulled back by a comrade, hearts pounding in unison. The creature surged partially from the water, a serpentine form with visible jaws, then vanished. Miller signaled to maintain formation. Each soldier moved with careful precision, despite the terror. Another boat was slammed sideways by a surge. Soldiers grabbed ropes and each other, balancing precariously on the slippery deck. Fear battled training. Every man knew hesitation could be fatal under the creature's unpredictable power. Hung observed currents and guided Miller. They adjusted boat positions to avoid capsizing while staying coordinated. Debris flew from the bank. Soldiers ducked and fired into shadows, unsure of what they were targeting. A soldier slipped, almost falling into the river, but was hauled back aboard, a reminder of survival's fragility. The creature surged under the lead boat. Waves crashed over the bow. Gears slid as men braced. The creature's attacks were calculated, exploiting any lapse in coordination or courage. Its intelligence was clear. A large branch swung toward a soldier. He ducked. Fear sharpened his reflexes and decision-making. Soldiers fired coordinated volleys. Tracers illuminated misty spray, but rounds met only water, enhancing their helplessness. Miller regrouped the men mid-river, using shouts to maintain cohesion. He constantly scanned shadows and ripples. A partial breach revealed glistening scales. It vanished before a rifle could strike. Awe mixed with terror. Currents twisted boats, creating near collisions. Soldiers shouted warnings, cohesion hanging by a thread. Hung fired bursts at fleeting shadows. The creature remained elusive, almost aware of their tactics. A soldier was momentarily submerged by a wave. Drenched and coughing, he realized survival relied on trust and training. Psychological toll was immense. Fear, exhaustion, and adrenaline challenged every man's composure. Another breach, the creature's massive head and torso broke the surface, jaws snapping. Panic clashed with discipline. Miller ordered flanking maneuvers. Currents and waves made the movement hazardous, testing their skill under pressure. Soldiers clung to equipment, ropes, and each other as boats lurched. Coordination was tested to its limit. The creature struck again. Waves smashed, the bow equipment flew. Men held on for survival as chaos enveloped them. Hung guided the boats toward a narrow channel, attempting to limit the creature's movements. The water was treacherous. The danger was unrelenting. A creature both intelligent and immense, capable of manipulating water and testing human reflexes. A soldier was nearly swept overboard, saved by his comrades' quick reaction. Teamwork was their only hope. The creature's tail lashed violently. Waves rocked boats and displaced debris, keeping soldiers on edge. Floating timber and branches collided with the boats. Men struggled to maintain footing and fire weapons. Their reliance on training and instinct was total. Every order, every response could mean life or death. Partial breaches revealed glistening scales and immense appendages vanishing before confirmation. Men were disoriented. Miller issued concise commands: stabilize boats, protect the wounded, prepare for sudden surges. Boats scraped over submerged debris. Men clutched weapons, adapting instantly to shifting currents. Another soldier was rescued drenched and with a pounding heart, exemplifying teamwork under duress. The creature surged toward the channel. Water exploded around the boat's debris, flying in every direction. Soldiers adjusted formation, rifles ready. They balanced fear with discipline and a focus on survival. The creature vanished abruptly, leaving only ripples, an indelible reminder of its intelligence, power, and human fragility. The river was deceptively calm, but soldiers remained tense, every splash keeping their nerves taut. Miller counted heads. 3 soldiers were missing, 1 wounded, a stark reminder of the encounter's lethality. Adrenaline faded, exhaustion settled, yet fear lingered like a shadow over each man's thoughts. Hung inspected their wet rifles and dislodged magazines, calculating what had survived the ordeal. The riverbank bore the marks of violence, torn vegetation, and broken branches, a testament to immense force. Soldiers helped each other, hands slipping on wet wood uniforms sodden with water and mud. Silence followed the chaos, an eerie pause as minds replayed every terrifying moment. Miller assessed the wounded soldier's injuries, applying first aid and assigning a comrade to watch him. Hung scanned the water, noting anomalies that suggested the creature had retreated, but only temporarily. Soldiers retrieved lost gear where possible, cataloging what remained usable for their continued patrol. Exhaustion was a heavy blanket. Every muscle ached, yet training enforced continued vigilance. The men huddled, their faces pale, eyes wide, hands trembling from cold fear and adrenaline. Miller reviewed checklists: no panic, maintain formation, remain alert, and record all observations. Hung marked anomalies on the map: debris, water disturbances, and unusual currents for after-action reports. Psychological scars were forming. They had faced a force beyond comprehension, leaving lasting uncertainty. A faint ripple made them raise their rifles. Nothing emerged, a reminder that the threat still lurked. One soldier muttered about local legends. They had dismissed the stories before. Now they seemed plausible. With wet, slippery equipment, they secured boats, checking for damage and immediate hazards. Gratitude for their cohesion was palpable. Teamwork and trust had saved lives, reinforcing their bonds. The wounded soldier was secured in the rear boat as medics carefully tended to his injuries. Miller surveyed the river, noting how the calm surface sharply contrasted with the recent chaos. Hung pointed out subtle trails of foam and shifting debris, indicating the creature had moved downstream. Lingering tension remained. The mind stays alert long after danger passes, haunted by what it cannot comprehend. Soldiers lit flares and checked signals, re-establishing communication among boats and with command. The riverbank was littered with lost helmets, packs, and canteens, each a testament to the violence. They shared a quiet mourning for the missing, a silent acknowledgement of comrades gone. Miller meticulously documented casualties and damages, finding structure in record-keeping amid the chaos. Hung guided boats towards safer channels, his voice calm, instilling reassurance despite the treacherous river. Soldiers moved cautiously, scanning every ripple and shadow, muscles still tensed from hours of exposure. The unit limped to a calm stretch. The Mekong had left them scarred and acutely aware of its secrets. The river lay eerily calm. Soldiers moved cautiously, eyes scanning fingers near triggers, aware that danger lingered unseen. Lieutenant Miller signaled for formation. The men were exhausted and shaken, but discipline held them together against uncertainty. The mind struggles to release terror when faced with forces beyond comprehension, leaving long shadows of doubt. Hung pointed to subtle ripples near submerged logs patterns, suggesting the creature was still observing them from the depths. Soldiers adjusted wet uniforms and checked weapons. The tactile routine was a fragile anchor against mounting paranoia. The silence that pressed upon the river amplified every small splash or whisper of wind in their heightened perception. A soldier glanced towards a bend and saw a fleeting shadow pass under the water. His heartbeat quickened despite his exhaustion. Miller issued a quiet command to pause and reassess. Tension was palpable even in their temporary inactivity. The jungle on the bank was unnaturally still. No bird song, no leaves moved. Soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Lingering dread took over. Hours of chaos gave way to a subtler fear of what remained unseen. Hung pointed to a branch floating against the current, moving with unnatural intelligence. The men held fire, unsure. Soldiers scanned every ripple, sensing a presence just below the surface, beyond the reach of their comprehension or weapons. Trained minds wrestled with fear, each man balancing reason against intuition as they struggled internally. Miller guided boats closer to the shore, signaling silently while remaining alert to shifting water patterns. The faint, metallic scent returned a lingering memory of the violence that had just passed, drifting in the air. Soldiers whispered, acknowledging the impossibility of understanding what they faced, relying on shared observation for reassurance. Even small, unexplainable movements, ripples, splashes, patterns, and debris were enough to keep the tension high. A soldier's eye caught a fleeting silhouette, a massive shape moving smoothly before disappearing. Adrenaline surged again. Miller counted men, ensuring cohesion, knowing fear was a constant companion now. The mental strain of prolonged alertness was immense. Exhaustion and uncertainty eroded discipline, if not carefully maintained. Hung traced subtle trails of foam and displaced vegetation, marking evidence for later intelligence reports. Soldiers adjusted their positions. Each man knew one misstep could be fatal, even in the absence of an immediate threat. The encounter had ended, but the river had proven it was not fully under human control. A sudden splash far downstream caused rifles to raise. The creature remained unseen, but its presence was undeniable. Miller instructed a slow, deliberate withdrawal. Every movement reinforced cohesion and control. Soldiers continually scanned, noting subtle changes in the currents. The smallest anomaly triggered their focused attention. Men were haunted by what they had witnessed. They were unable to reconcile training with reality. Hung whispered to Miller about local legends now suddenly plausible. Myth and reality blurred in this extreme situation. The boats reached a calmer stretch. Men exhaled collectively, though bodies remained tense and eyes still alert to unseen threats. The Mekong revealed its power. The men survived physically, but the river's mysteries would haunt them indefinitely.